What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Sec Tech Podcast. I'm your host, Matt Lemke. Join with me, as always, Kenn Williamson. Ken, how you doing, man?
Doing really well. How about you, Matt?
I'm good. It's the dog days of summer.
They're here. They're here. Like over 100 degrees, heat index 110. It's brutal out there.
Yeah, like when I'm walking my dog at 6 a.m. and it's already hot. You're like, okay, yeah, summer's here. But it's all good. We're programmers. We basically live indoors anyway.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly. I
So-
don't have to go outside very often. No, but what's hard for me is that right now, because it's so hot and it's so humid, my air conditioner just condenses
Yeah.
so much water.
Mhm.
And the way that it's set up is that it's in the basement and there's this drain pipe that goes down, and it like can get clogged up with dust and stuff when it's like
Right.
really flowing heavy. Like it'll clear, but it takes time. And
Mhm.
so if it's really dumping a lot of water out, then I'll end up with this giant puddle in my basement. Or the other thing that happens is that it's going so strong that it's just like water dumping out of the unit because it's just
Right.
condensing so much that it's overfilling the pan. So it's just like a huge pain. I've like gotten the shop back down there and like try to vacuum out the pipes and suck up all the water, and it's been a whole thing. But
Yeah. Those things are so difficult, especially with those pipes too, because like you don't know where the clog is. It could be 2 feet in, it could be 20.
yeah, and I
You
don't
know?
even know where the pipe drains to. Like
Right.
it's just like off
Mm.
underground somewhere away from the basement.
Yeah.
So no, it's a huge pain. But I mean, I've had plumbers out and they're like, "Oh no, it's draining. It's fine. The pipe's fine." I'm like, "Okay, well then why do I have this huge pool of water every summer?"
Okay. Yeah. What there's some causality to why I called you here, right?
Yeah.
Let's figure that out. Yeah, I feel you on that. Actually, we're through an appliance apocalypse at my house right now.
Oh yeah, just all of them at the same time.
Same time, dude. I mean, dishwasher overflowed, into the premium hardwood, and it stayed there a couple hours because we had left. So now I've got a little bit of warp now on the hardwood that I've got to restore, and then the pipes to the sink were clogged. Had a plumber come out, unplug the kitchen sink. I don't know if he did something wrong, but all of a sudden, a day later, the garbage disposal is not working. Had to get that fixed. The dryer heat, coil went out. So I had a plumber and an appliance guy there, both at the same time yesterday. And then now we think we've got to get somebody out for the AC unit because I mean, it's hot, but it's really not keeping up. So yeah, dude, we're like literally on this appliance apocalypse, man. It's terrible.
That I feel for you, brother.
Thank you.
That's the joy of home ownership right there.
It really is, man. This is where you wish you were renting for sure. But man, I'm excited for this dev corner. We're gonna do something a little different today. We're gonna play a couple games.
Yeah, I saw your text about this and I was like, all right, let's do it.
Yeah. So the first game we're gonna play is called That's True, That's Not True, and That's Ridiculous.
All right.
I'm going to throw out a statement, and you're going to tell me if what I'm saying is true, if it's not true, or if it's completely ridiculous, and why.
Okay.
You ready?
Yep.
Okay. And these are all kind of just related to, obviously, software in our field, right? So here's the first one. This was a headline of an article that I saw on medium.com. It was called Agile is Dead. And it was a guy explaining why agile methodology is dead. So I want to ask you, will agile be dead in the next 5 years? Will companies be agile in the next 5
years? Well, I think that it is a little ridiculous to ask the question because even before agile was a thing, it was a thing, right? Yeah. Like a lot of like Kanban came from I'm pretty sure it was Toyota that was instituted, and it was literally like cards on a real board then. Mm-hmm. And so these ideas like Six Sigma, lean manufacturing, right? Like all of these kinds of ideas have been around for a long time. And I mean, they go in and out of season. And to me, the most ridiculous thing is the idea that every project is going to fit into one sort of methodology. Like
Mm-hmm.
there are some things, you know, where you have to have a plan, you fully plan the whole thing out,
Right.
and then you execute, and then you're done,
Yep.
right? And that really is more of a waterfall thing, and the agile just kind of gets tacked on, you know, in those sort of scenarios, because it's something like, I'll give you a good example. Is the very first project that I got on
Mm-hmm.
after I got hired at SecTech was working on this upgrade to a software system that was embedded. It was running on Linux. It was, you know, on an ARM microprocessor, little device, written in C, C++. And we were basically rewriting the integration between this application, which was kind of a combo of a, you know, a lot of different things that this device did,
Mm-hmm.
but then they wanted it to integrate with this application that was kind of like um, something for extending that, and really open-ended. Like the idea was that this integration would allow them to write little blocks of code that could be executed, that they wouldn't have to redo the software every time. It would just
Okay.
be like,
Interesting. Yeah.
here we just load up this block of software, and I don't want to get too far into the weeds, but essentially that was the whole project, right? And like we were quote unquote doing agile, but there wasn't anything to show week over week.
Yeah.
Why? Because it's like, it's not working, it's not working, it's not working, it's still not working, it's not working, it's not working, it's not working, and then it's
And
working,
then it works. Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
And
I
it's
gotcha.
like
Yeah.
there was no like, and so we're doing all these sprints, quote unquote sprints, without really doing any demos, because it was just nothing to show. Like we're
Right.
just working through all these details, and there were a
Right.
lot of them that needed to be managed. And anyway, so in that project, we quote unquote did agile, but it really was more of a waterfall
Waterfall.
thing.
Yeah.
And anyway, and so my point being that different projects need different methodologies. I would say that agile is a really good one, when especially like we had Jason Knight on the other day, and he was talking about this move from project to product. And when you're working on a product
Yeah.
and not a project,
Right.
then agile is really the much better methodology, because
Agreed.
it focuses on adding value at every increment, right?
Right.
And so it's really great in that scenario. And I just don't see anything ever becoming better than that, right? Because it really balances the ability to pivot, the ability to keep stakeholder buy-in, because you're constantly showing progress,
Right.
and then the value add, because you're doing incremental progress. And so anyway, long-winded answer to say, I think it's a little ridiculous, the idea that agile is going to be dead, or
I
is dead.
completely agree. I completely agree because we like to do this in software. We do the same thing with technologies. Ruby on Rails comes out. It's like everything has to be Ruby, and this is the greatest thing ever. And then at its pinnacle, what do we like to do? We like to tear it right back down, right? Agile was born out of the software engineers, product owners, these teams, we're smart people, right? I mean, we use a lot of common sense, you know, in what we do. I mean, we think critically. It you know, we didn't just come up with agile because it's like, well, we need something to put in a box. You know, it actually developed because you know, it's a really good way of handling most projects, not everything, but most projects that are, like you said, more of a product based, right? And I think that what we did is we got really enamored with the system, and then we get so focused on the system, and you know, we like to build rigidity into the system, and this is exactly what it is, and it can't be anything else. And then you know, then you find different use cases of why that doesn't fit, and then all of a sudden, you know, we want to tear it right back down. you can not call it agile if you want to, but you're going to do some version of it, right? Um, your most companies are going to do some version of it, and whatever you want to call it, fine, relabel it. But the principles of agile really just the team decides on what's going to be worked on in the recent, in the near future, the next 2 weeks, and we work on those, we ship those, and we demo them to the client. I mean, it's really, again, call it whatever you want, and so I do agree. I think it's ridiculous to say that agile is dead, um, or will be dead. Maybe we rename it, but I highly doubt that the principles of agile are going anywhere. That was a good one. Okay, let's do this one. I like this one a lot. There's been a lot of attention over the last year and a half, and this isn't quite really within our scope because we've had the same jobs now for like 3 to 6 years. But in the job market, what's becoming really common is that it's not really enough anymore, in a lot of instances, to just be a good software engineer. A lot of times, now what's starting to happen is that companies are asking for software with DevOps experience, software with UI UX, Figma experience, right? There's a lot of things, kind of a broader of look of what people are wanting when they're hiring now. So let's do this one. Software engineers will need to have more than one skill to hold a good job in today's market.
Yeah, I think that's true. And I well, let me caveat. They need one skill, and that skill is the ability to learn.
You-
Like I think you have exactly identified what's going on. I think that we are at a point where people are realizing that the software engineer that knows his one technology really, really well, and requirements come in through the door and code comes out, whatever, through a crack, and that is just kind of going away because technologies are moving so quickly.
Yeah.
There's just the space is too big now for you to be so incredibly specialized unless you're in a niche, like my brother, he is a CFD engineer and does models for companies, talking about how fluids flow, computational fluid dynamics. And like there are basically two main software packages that do this, and he's familiar with both of them.
Yeah.
And that's something that he's fine with, and
Right.
he can just keep getting more and more skilled. And it's like he doesn't really need to learn other things outside of that, to do that main function. But what even he is finding out is that there's more to it than just this, running these simulations. There's a customer that you have to interact with, and there's soft skills you have to develop. There's internal communication skills that you have to develop in order to get the right information to run your models. And so it's like, even in this incredibly niche area, he's still having to deal with these skills. But I would say that the pressure on him to go out and learn Express or some framework, .NET, whatever, is relatively low, right?
Yeah.
Like if they're wanting him to, they're not going to be wanting him to like build a website for him or something.
Right.
But anyway, I think that is true. I think that the more skills you can put in your toolbox is the more problems you can solve well, because if the only tool you have is a hammer, every problem looks like a nail. And so you need to be able to solve the problems with the right tools. And so, yeah, I mean, I would say that that's my answer, is that yes, that's true, that software engineers need to learn a lot of different frameworks, languages. They need to have DevOps skills. They need to have soft skills. They need to, at some level, be able to design a wireframe, to be able to communicate to a customer. And there are varying degrees of skill that you can do, but you need to at least be aware of them, and that if you're put on this task, that you know where to go. Like, and so that's why I said that maybe if we were going to say one skill, it'd be the ability to learn.
Yeah, I completely agree with you 100%. I think that if you are a software engineer looking to go into software engineering right now, you really do need to have a good base language, right? So you can learn JavaScript. If you learn JavaScript, you probably need to put like a React, Vue, Angular in your package, and then probably now one of these next JSs, and then yeah, you kind of need to know a lot about, you're going to need to know a good deal about V Node. You're going to need to understand, and when we say learn DevOps, like if you could set up a CI/CD pipeline out of GitHub or something like that, or you know how to use the Azure DevOps environment, that's probably sufficient. Now, I will say this on the employment side: if you're going to ask for somebody to be proficient in a language as a software engineer, then also be more than just semi competent in DevOps, or their Figma, their design skills are decently advanced. You better put that in the salary package, right? And that's where I would say, as a software engineer, that's really where you should be looking. Like if you want me to throw together a wireframe in Figma, sure, no problem. If you want me to create like a mock-up in Figma that can click
Yeah.
and do
Click
all
through.
these,
Yeah.
like, yeah, I mean, you should probably be getting paid more for that, because that means that you're really good at that, and you're really good at software, and you're really good at DevOps. Now all of a sudden, yeah, that's a whole different story. But I do think you need a base level of competence in these different areas to just know what's going on, basically. So yeah, I completely agree. I think that that's true. Last one on this one, and then we're going to change gears. Computer science degrees are going to be obsolete in the next decade.
I think that I mean, yes, for the most part, that I think that's true. But I think that it's part of a larger trend that is going to be moving away from college degrees in general.
Agreed.
I think that we had an explosion of college degrees, like when the government really got involved in education and started guaranteeing loans. Then
Yeah.
we saw an explosion of people that were admittedly marginal, right? Like, this is what people struggle so hard to understand. It's like all the people that were intended to go to college before this started were going to college,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
And so if we're going to expand that now with these loan guarantees and special programs, then necessarily it's the marginal people that weren't quite there, right, that are going to be getting in now. And that isn't to say that some of them aren't really talented, and
Right.
it was some sort of life circumstance,
Right.
whatever it may be, that was keeping them from going in, right? But that's not all of them. And I would say that's not even most of them.
That's not most of them. I mean, I've had this conversation so many times. I've got a good core friend group from high school, about 12 guys, and we still get together. None of us use our degrees that we set out for, except for one guy who went to med school. Obviously, you're going to use that. But most of us don't use it. And the reason why is because we really just went to college because our parents told us to go to college. And the way that things were set up, we all had scholarships. And the only way to use those scholarships is if you go right out of high school into college. There was no time to sit there and figure out what we wanted to do. So, yeah, you're completely right.
So I think that what that does is make it so that if you're going to be going into a field that requires a degree, like you mentioned, a doctor, that's one. I would say a lawyer, that's another one. And an engineer, if you need to go on the professional track of becoming a engineering trainee and then a professional engineer, which are two qualifications that every state has, that they all have rules, and all of those rules include having a bachelor's of
Right.
science in some kind of engineering, right? And so I think those people are still going to be going to college, although it's going to start shifting,
Mhm.
right? And it's going to be like a hierarchy of the people that are like, there's going to be lesser technical qualifications that you'll get at like tech school and stuff so that you can go and do some of the things that engineers are doing now.
Yeah.
And then the engineering people that are going to a 4-year university and getting a degree are going to be probably more high level designers and things like that. And so anyway, outside of that, I think the college degree is going to be pretty worthless, right? Like the liberal arts education is dead. Like we are like it used to be, you'd go to college and then part of your college education was getting this well-rounded exposure to basically the entirety of Western civilization, right? Like you were going to philosophy 101 and you're looking at Plato and Aristotle, right? You were going to your art history class and you were looking at, you know, whatever, Van Gogh and Michelangelo. You know, you were getting this experience of understanding where we came from as a civilization. And it really was this education that kind of prepared you for being a productive member of society and having this awareness of how all this stuff works, that you know, all of these institutions and everything. And unfortunately, I would say over the last 20 or 30 years that has been dying a slow death and is now dead, where you can go to college, you can get a 4-year degree, and you can come out with not only no understanding of Western civilization and where we came from and where our place is in all of this, but a misunderstanding of how it all works. Where I mean, and I'm sorry to say, and I hope, I guess write in if I'm offending you with this, like, but most, if not all of these professors are ideologically driven and hate the culture that produced them. And it's really unfortunate. Right. And so, and when I went to school, which was like maybe 20 years, 10, 15 years ago now.
Don't age yourself, Ken.
I don't even want to get into that. But anyway, I could already see the writing on the wall because of the classes that I were in and the things we were talking about now. And I can't even imagine, like, you see all of these like protests on campuses and you have people there that don't even really understand what they're protesting. They don't even understand what's happening. They're just like, we have all this emotion and offense built up because it's been pushed on us our whole lives that this is what we're supposed to feel. And this is the latest thing. And so we have to go out and support it, you know? And so,
no, I'm 100% with you.
Anyway, a little bit of a ramble.
No, I think it was good. I do think that it's true. I think that computer science degrees will be obsolete. And I think for all the reasons that you just mentioned, because I mean, even like as a dad, like, let's just say, you know, Colson, you know, he's only 6 months, but let's just say he was about to turn 18. I'd probably try to push him away from college unless there was something he had to go to college to do. Right. And a big part of that was, like you said, you know, even now today, you still got to go take philosophy 101. It's not a very good class and you got to pay 10 grand for it. Right. So, you know, it's crazy expensive. And I think that, I think with the explosion of the internet, one of the great things is like, you know, people like you and I, when we want to transfer over to software engineering, we were like, we're not going to go to school. We'll YouTube it. Like,
do a boot camp.
We'll go to a little boot camp. That'll get us enough of it. And then we'll just go learn the rest on our own. Like, what do we need a college for?
Yeah.
For
and I will say that I think that there will be a niche developing of more in-depth technical training for software engineers, like a tech school, or like these boot camps, because I think what's happening and what we're finding in the boot camps is that it's not enough to just train people mechanically. How do you build a website? How do you make something happen? Right. Like there needs to be a little bit of training about what's going on behind the scenes and a little bit of the history of thought of computer science in general, and like understanding data structures and understanding algorithms. And some boot camps are good at that and some aren't that good at it. And so I think that we're going to see that there is going to be somewhere in the middle between the whatever 16-week boot camp and a 4-year degree, that there's going to be schools hitting this niche and boot camps and things that's going to be basically giving people what they would learn in a computer science degree in professional school and just cutting out all of the liberal arts education. And so then we'll end up with some really good engineers. Because right now, it's my sense that there are a lot of people that were sold a little bit of a false bill of goods on they're going to go to boot camp and make six figures coming right out of it. And
that's what they all tell you.
Yeah, and the reality is that, like, if you could have done it on your own, a boot camp is really helpful because it gives you accountability, it gives you structure, and it gives you people to go through it with. I think I don't remember if it was during the podcast or after when we were talking with him, but Eric brought that up. But anyway, and so those people are going to be even more successful. And I think also part of it is going to be, there's going to be some weed out that happens, like where, you're going to go into it, you're going to go through these remedial classes to basically train you how to think like a developer, and get you used to data structures and algorithms and all of these kinds of things. And my sense is that is going to be used by the school to weed out the people that aren't going to do well, because it's there's a little bit of a flood on the market, and ultimately they're going to have to do something to change their business model because people are catching on.
I completely agree, 100%. We're just going to see boot camps become tech schools. That's basically what's going to happen.
I agree,
100%. Well, let's shift gears to another game I want to play called Half-Baked Ideas.
All right, so I was thinking about this. Here, sorry, go ahead, explain the game.
No, okay. So here's what the game is. We're gonna give ideas, suggestions about how we think our teams can run better, tech companies can be better, software engineers can be better. But they're half-baked ideas. These are not ideas that are like super fleshed out and it's like you can go implement tomorrow. These are just random ideas that we have basically just half-baked, right? And we're just like, we would love a solution for this. So it's really like coming up with problems, and then we're gonna find we're gonna plug the problem with a half-baked solution. Okay, so do you want me to go first?
No,
go
I
first?
had
Okay,
one. I thought of one in the car, and we're already getting close to time. So one of the things that always frustrates me about consulting work is slack time.
That was my phone.
Is that you'll have one engineer on a project, and then like there's just not enough work in that project for them to fill up all their time, and so they have to kind of make time. They have to kind of do, so I don't want to say busy work, but basically like there's slack capacity right in this guy. And so and then the other problem that I'm looking to solve is that I don't like the way that salary structures are set up for software engineers, because I think that it is difficult to match up your productivity with the amount of money that you're getting. I think that there are a lot of engineers out there that, they throw around the term 10x engineer. And I'll tell you the 10, and for people that are watching, a 10x engineer is an engineer that's writing and producing 10x the output of your average engineer. And the reality is the 10x engineers are not getting 10x salaries. And that on the flip side, the 0.1x, who's doing a tenth of the work of everyone else, is not getting 1/10 of the salary either. And so those two problems, this slack capacity and the fact that I don't think that there's adequate performance evaluation as part of the salary, is I came up with this half-baked idea of somehow gamifying the development process to where you build like a kind of like an MMO system where you have product owners entering in stories, people are estimating them, and then you actually have, instead of this developer's on this project and this developer's on this project, it's like all your developers are on all of the projects. Here are all of the stories for all of the projects with the points.
I like this.
And then you just work as much as you can, as much as you want, and then you get paid based on how much output. How many story points you complete. And so well, here, I'll leave it that and then let you react.
I love this. I love this for a couple reasons. Number one, if if the languages and the structures are similar of each project, it's not that hard to get a project, rip a project down and get going, right? And so, especially if you could just like Dockerize them all and it's standard, right? It's pretty easy for everyone to get a project up and running. And what I love about it is you're 100% right. There were times when I was on a project, we were on a project together, and we had another engineer with us, right? And so you were kind of our senior engineer. He was like mid level. I was basically the junior. And the problem sometimes on that project was like we would get a sprint that was somewhat, of a normal capacity. And, you would knock out maybe 30-40% of the sprint. And then he would knock out like 30-40% of the sprint before I'm done with like even just 10% of the sprint. Right. And you're 100% right. It was like, well, this story is only a 3, but I got to do this for 6 hours because I got to hit 40 hours for some reason, right? So I love this because one, it solves that problem, but then two, it really allows like, if you are like a junior engineer, you're going to grab stories that you can do, and you're going to be able to knock them out, right, and get them up, and that saves you from having to do them, or a senior engineer having to do them. And then at the same time, you as a junior engineer, you can pick out a few things that maybe challenge you a little bit, right? So you're going to be able to get through, but it's completely dependent on how much you actually go get, right?
Yeah.
Which I love.
Yeah, and so some problems with that is obviously you kind of alluded to it, is that not every story can be done by every engineer, which is reality. And so what I had thought about that was being able to form teams with other people to, so say like, you and I would form a team and say, we're going to work this story together. And then, we would just agree beforehand, whatever, it's going to be a 50-50 split or a 60-40 or whatever. And so then that way it would encourage younger developers to develop relationships with more senior developers so that they could get the experience. And then it's also beneficial to the senior developer because he can say, hey, I see this, just throwing a number out there, this 8-story point story, but really there's just one little piece of it that's really the predominant complexity. Right. And then the rest of it is just like a lot of filling stuff out, managing details that someone else can handle. So I could partner with you and say, here, I'm going to knock out this one piece of it that's pretty complex, and we can pair program it so you can get some experience. Right. And then you pick up the ball and carry it into the end zone, and then we both get paid. Yeah. Right. And so anyway, I just think that it would be, but it's still half-baked because it's really hard. And then like the idea is it also allows companies to pay exactly what they want, which is to say that they're going to pay, monthly, weekly, whatever, a certain amount of money. They have a certain amount of stories, and that money that they're paying is just going into the pot that's sweetening these stories, right? And so there's going to be this sweet spot that develops that will allow forecasters on the BA side to say, hey, for what you want, this is what we think you need to pay in order to get it done in this kind of time frame, right? With the way things are going in the system right now. Now you can pay more and get it done quicker, or you can pay less and it's going to take longer, right? And so really though, that frees the people that are the BA people from a really hard problem, which is trying to sell projects because they don't know if they're coming in over what the number that the person has in their head, right? And so they're not going to get the project, or they're underestimating everything, and so they're going under, and then they're kind of stuck holding the bag, right? And so how we solve it is that we do a pretty in-depth discovery process, which I think is great. But what would be nice is if that discovery process was a loss leader that they're paying, that, they're getting a discount on. We probably don't make any money on that. But after that, we now have, here's all the work sparred out, stories written from a business perspective, right? Not technical implementations. And then we know how much money this company is willing to pay. So that prioritizes that for the developers to say, I'm going to pick this story because I'm going to make X amount of dollars. Right. And then anyway, so a little bit of a ramble there, but that's been my maybe it's like 2/3 baked. Like
Two-thirds baked.
I've been
Yeah.
thinking about it a while, because I just see this huge problem of slack capacity in software engineering. And then also, like, I guess the way that I would put it is that your best engineers are being dragged down by the fact that they have no incentive to use their full potential.
Right.
Right. Like, their incentive is to do exactly how much you're expecting for the amount of money you're giving them. Right. Yeah. And so it's something where, and then a lot of junior developers aren't getting hired because the employer doesn't think that they can produce to that level. And so here, maybe we pay everybody minimum wage as just a baseline. And then everything else is commission off of the stories, and then that way you can have as many developers as you want. You can, really divvy up the work any way you want. Anyway, that's kind of my half-baked idea.
Last thing I'll say about that I really love is it also keeps from what happens in consulting, where you start on a new project and your only available resources are people who aren't suited for that project. And now you're putting a round peg into a square hole, or square peg in a round hole. Square peg into a round hole, because you've got a bad match of what the project is and the resources you have available. It cuts that out. And that happens more than we like to talk about. I love it. Let me give you mine.
Okay.
We all in software, especially since remote work started, know that there are at least 2 or 3 meetings that we are in a week that have literally nothing to do with us.
Yeah.
And it is so frustrating to sit in a meeting and listen to people talk about things that have nothing to do with what you're doing on the project. So here's my idea. One, so all this requires is that every meeting that you have comes with an agenda. And in that agenda, if at any point within the meeting you get A, off the agenda, or B, you go more than 5 minutes within that agenda itinerary that doesn't have to do with you, right? So they've been talking for 5 minutes. Nothing of it has anything to do with what you're doing. You get to raise a yellow card.
Yeah.
Right. And, it's just something silent on the screen. Like, okay, it's been 5 minutes. And as I said, I'm giving a yellow card. And if I give 3 yellow cards in a meeting, I get to leave that meeting with no repercussions. Like, once I am so that means that within 3 times, 15 minutes, or 3 times we've gotten off the meeting agenda into some rabbit hole that has nothing to do with me, I now just get to leave this meeting because it's clearly a waste of my time.
Yeah, I love that. That's kind of like the meeting philosophy of Elon Musk and Tesla and them. Like, he's explicitly said, like, if you're in a meeting and it has nothing to do with you, just leave.
Yeah.
And I love that. And I completely agree. But you're right that, a kind of system around that would be good, because there is this kind of like social expectation that you're going to sit through the meeting if you started it, and that if you just leave in the middle, people are going to have questions.
Right.
But now there's a system, and you can see
like, man, there was 3 yellow cards. Like, what do you want me to do? Right.
That's it. That's just the rule. So no, I love that idea.
You'll have to have some sort of yellow card enforcer, because we've also been in meetings where it's like, hey, this actually does have to do with you. You're just disinterested. And you're not talking, right? So you can't raise a yellow card just because you don't like what's being talked about, if it does have to do with you. You know what I mean? But so you'd have to have some sort of like, enforcer, like, they see the yellow card, it's like, I don't know about that one, but overall, basically what this does is it just, because it's really what happens is just the social convention of it, right? Like, I feel like I have to stay in this meeting because everybody else is staying in this meeting, and I just want to contribute, right? And if I just leave, people are like, oh, what's Matt's problem? Just up and exits meetings now, who's this guy, right? But if it's implied and known, okay, well, Matt had 3 yellow cards, like, he's out. I think it would just save us all a lot of time, and it would just help the social understanding of like, why did Matt leave the meeting? Well, he had 3 yellow cards. All right, been talking for 15 minutes. Nothing has anything to do with them. Let him go back to work. So yeah, that's my half baked idea right there.
I like it. I definitely is a problem to be solved. So I think that that's great. So, well, we're kind of coming towards the end of the time, and I'm not going to upset our producer. So I'm going to remember this time, like, subscribe, share, please comment. We want to try to do a mailbag episode where we take your comments on the podcast and talk about them. And really it can be as off the wall as what we've been talking about here today, but we want to engage with you. So thanks everyone. Thanks for joining.
I like you doing the closes. It's hard, huh?
It is hard. That wasn't the close. Now you have to really do the close.
Now I have to close. Thank you guys all so much. We'll be back in 2 weeks with a guest. Like Ken said, like, subscribe, comment, email us. Don't call us. We'll see you guys in 2 weeks. Thank you so much.
Thank you.